Hey everyone, so today we have Beau Billington, founder of the Free Agent. The Free Agent is one of the leading fractional talent platforms. Now, if you've been listening to the show, you know that fractional has been a segment we've covered a lot in the past 6 months. 2 years ago, didn't hear about it much. We heard about interim, but now fractional is one of the fastest growing segments of the flexible workforce. So what is fractional? Literally executives. What's different is that individuals who have really succeeded in corporate are realizing that it might be better and easier, and they'll make more and they'll be more secure if they have their own fractional practice. Now, what does this practically mean? It means that individuals, they still have ownership, they still have buy-in, and a lot of times they're still leading teams. The difference is they know that they can make more of an impact if they have 2 to 5 clients at one time. And you'll hear about a lot of different strategies that they use to really give the best service to their clients, meaning you. So Beau is going to talk about sort of why he founded the Free Agent, what's working well, how he's seeing clients really succeed. And you're just going to get a masterclass on what the fractional workforce looks like and what it will look like over the next 5 years. Now, quick updates, really exciting updates on the human cloud side for you. We just wrapped up SHRM Live. You're going to see incredible live episodes coming out. Also, Market Map V2. It's ready. For you members, you have it in your portal right now. If you're not a member, go buy a membership ASAP. What are you waiting for? But you're going to start to see specific segments come out. There's over 300 solutions featured. We picked the 80th percentile of solutions. And I'll give you a hint, there is a lot to do with AI, both AI-specific companies and how AI is impacting the flexible workforce. So enjoy, then most important, go drive some change. All right, well, Beau, thank you for hopping on, man. So for you listeners out there, Beau and I are, what are we, 5 minutes away, Beau? 10 minutes away from each other?
Just about, yeah, 10 to 15 minutes.
We
Small
still
world.
somehow have not met in person, so you don't know if I'm like 5'1" or 6'1".
I'm thinking somewhere 5'10", 5'9", somewhere in there, but I have no
Depends.
idea.
My hinge height was a lot higher than my wallet, my license height. No, just kidding. It's only off by about an inch. I'll let you know in person. I'm not that short, also not that tall, so got a little bit of Napoleonic complex, but not that much.
Yeah, I'm a bit average myself, so hey, all good.
We'll make the title the average podcast, right? With the average people. But Beau, the flag behind you, is that for you or who? What do we got going with the flag behind you?
Oh, that's actually my wife's grandfather served in the military, and he
Oh,
passed away about 2 weeks ago.
oh, we're
So
so
we've got the corner as a tribute
yeah.
to him. He was a vet and served in I believe it was the Korean War. So
Wow. Okay. Well, this podcast is in honor of him. So
okay, fair
way to
enough.
set the bar high, Beau. Like,
Yeah.
all right, now we have to talk about flexible talent. Really exciting. But cool. But listen, I think this is going to be a fun episode, and we met 12 months ago, I think, and I was like, hey, stop talking. Let's get you on the podcast ASAP,
Yeah.
and so we don't lose any insights. But how would you describe yourself, Beau, and how would you describe what you're doing?
Yeah, so 8 years ago, I would have described myself as an eternal optimist. I feel like owning a business that can kind of change your perspective a little bit. But I've been in business for 8 years. Had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Kind of got into the busyness of life, the money trap, and realized that timing was never going to be good or appropriate. So jumped out 8 years ago, started my company, The Free Agent, and we're all about kind of fractional executive support. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get a little bit deeper into what that means. But I do feel my optimism kind of lends itself well to entrepreneurship because there's a lot of lonely nights, and the second you become a pessimist, game over.
Yep. No, I mean, changes by the minute, man. But let's get deep right away. Let's get deep into the Free Agent. And right away, let's hit the head on why the hell you decide to start this business and also the founder journey. Because I always love, what I love most about this podcast, to be honest, is that
Yeah.
the guests are good enough that I'm always like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Like you could have started a tech company, you could have started a fintech company. Like you didn't have to start a flexible talent solution, but you did.
Yeah.
So why? And what was sort of the journey getting here?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. A lot of the premise around my company, The Free Agent, was born out of like necessity, right? I kind of mentioned how work life balance was a bit off kilter.
Yeah.
My wife and I are very busy. I was doing a lot of international travel, passing each other in the hallway, um, trying to get geared up for somebody's other product and solution. And I found as I kind of got further in my career, it became a little bit more difficult for me to get excited about somebody else's stuff and their playbook. And so ultimately, I wanted to create a company around what I thought my biggest skill set was, which essentially is connecting people. Initially, I actually wanted to be a free agent myself. So a hired gun, go work for a multitude of different companies over the course of a year, and realized pretty quickly, Matt, that I've got zero interest in consulting, like zero, like negative interest. It's not my bag. It's not my thing. I enjoy the discussions. I don't want to lead the discussions. I feel like my magic's really kind of putting people together, and it's personally satisfactory. It gives me personal satisfaction when I make a connection between two people that otherwise wouldn't know each other.
Yeah. Which
Um,
why? So okay, but I'm gonna double click, right? Why not just build a community and charge for it? Why not go buy a bar or a social club, right? So why do this crazy thing called a flexible talent platform? And we'll get into the details between
yeah.
gig and freelance and fractional, and we'll kind of slice that up. But and let me tell you what, I'll never forget my one of my biggest aha moments or like whiplash moments was I was sitting in one of the best startups at the time, and we had just
Mhm.
raised 22 million from Andreessen, and so excited. Heart of Silicon Valley, living in Soma. For any of you listeners that are in SF right now, living in Soma, loved it. And I'll never forget when we're sitting on the couch, and the founder just goes, "I can make so much more money if I just went to Microsoft." Right? So I had that aha of, ooh, founder and entrepreneurship game actually
Yeah.
is not exactly that glamorous.
No.
But now add the flexible talent layer and it's a painful game. But so why this over a bar, a social club, something else that can be connecting people?
Great question. Honestly, it boils down to passion, right? Again, I wanted to build a company around what I thought my greatest strength was, which is connecting people. But also, too, I grew up in a single household mom, and I was very close with my dad. It wasn't a bad situation; it was actually a great situation. But my mom worked a ton, and so that's always been in the back of my mind: is to like, how can I provide a different scenario for my children? And so that's kind of how I started digging a little bit deeper into like the fractional space, the gig space, this whole strata of different ways to create a better work-life balance. And that's the essence of my company. And candidly, I'll give you the quick story. My aha moment. I was actually in Toronto about 3 days before Christmas. My oldest daughter, I think, was about a year, almost a year at the time. And in short, like all my meetings got canceled because of inclement weather. It was horrible. And I was there because somebody told me to be there, and I didn't want to be there. And I was terrified that I was going to miss my first Christmas with my daughter. And so I'm sitting there at the bar because, again, no meetings. So I'm eating dinner. And ESPN was on in the background, and they're talking about so and so is going to be a free agent, and they're going to be in this position to essentially be able to choose who they want to work with. I'm sorry, who they want to play for, right? And that literally was the ding ding moment in my head where I was like, holy crap, how would that be? How awesome would that be if I was a free agent? I was not beholden to one company. I didn't have to travel to Toronto when I knew the weather was going to be shit. And I started thinking about that, and I couldn't shake the thought. And literally 2 years went by, and I kind of worked on the business plan, nights and weekends, but didn't really do much about it. And finally, you know, worked up the courage to jump out. But that's when it all kind of clicked for me. It was like there's got to be a better existence and a better reality out there for me. And so I went out to kind of create that reality for myself. And now I try to give other folks that same reality.
So there's gonna be two directions. Make sure I don't forget this, and for you listeners, I think this part you're really gonna love, which is how do we balance this massive contradiction that is the individuals want the freedom and choice, the employers do not want them to have the freedom of choice, and this isn't like a I don't want to make it like a spiritual or like a feelings thing, but
Yeah.
like, let's just be blunt. If you're a manager, the last thing you want is your employee walking around as a free agent, right? Like that's just a massive, massive don't want that. So we're going to hit on this contradiction. Before we do, though, give us a little bit about the free agent. Is it a
Yeah.
freelance platform for everything? Is it a only fractional? Is it a just sales? What?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of the quick and dirty elevator pitch. So essentially, we work generally with like high tech, high growth organizations. So B2B SaaS, B2C SaaS, professional services, and then most recently in the last couple of years, we've done work with like private equity and VC backed tech companies. Ironically, 8 years ago they thought I was crazy, and now with just kind of the economic conditions, cost of capital, they're the ones that get the fractional model the most right now. And the bootstrap founders have actually kind of chilled a little bit. But we do a couple different things. So we still do full-time placement. So we'll go out into the market and find a company's next leader. Additionally, too, we of course do interim and fractional work. And that's, for my definition, that's putting somebody to work. That's, some scenario that's not 40 hours a week, right? Typically 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 plus. From a skill set perspective, we work across a couple different silos, but sales and marketing, tech and product, and then operations and finance, and generally kind of at that strategic layer and higher. So we're not the best platform we're not a Fiverr, as an example. We can't have somebody join and go get somebody to do graphic design. But if you need a full product strategy or somebody to build out your go-to-market motion, then our platform has a vetted network of fractional execs that are ready to go.
Gotcha. And why? Let's just hit the head on why not what I'm going to call V1 of the freelance industry. So the Upwork and Fiverrs, which
Yeah.
the average. Actually, let me ask you. This is just me like trying to show off. This is like pure ego for me. Okay, when I ask this question, because the answer is kind of like who gives a shit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Bring it on.
what do you think the average annual spend of a client on Upwork? What do you think it is?
Oh man, I'd be willing to bet it's below $1,000. Probably somewhere
You guys wrong.
for $300, 350, 400.
That would be like the average project size, but it's around 4,000. I think it's like $4,500 based off their last annual. Still tiny, right? Like that's less than some consultants' day rates. Fiverr, it's less than 1,000. It's around $500 a year, which is still crazy, right? So like that is
So I wasn't way off then.
you were way. I mean, yeah, you weren't way off at all.
Yeah.
But so V1, right, is like, hey, this is a gig marketplace, transaction based, task based, usually small, quick, replaceable, you name it. And then V2, we started to see like the Catalans and the Paros that were saying, ooh, actually this free agent slash freelance slash fractional model can work really well within consulting, accounting, finance, these highly strategic type positions. And then we just saw this insane growth of these specialized. So if you want creative, if you want marketing, if you want e-commerce, if you want just Java, all of these crazy specialized, right? And that's where we're sitting in the middle of right now. So when hearing you say, okay, if you want a product strategy done, what would you say is your specialty? And how did you get to that place? Like, did you want to go start in Upwork and you just happened to stumble into this? Like, what led to this?
So I actually had no interest in starting an Upwork or Catalent, and I know who those guys are. They're actually in my business plan from like 8 years ago. Great business, by the way. But I think they tout themselves as having like 100,000 different, agents, if you will, in their platform. And to me, that's a bit tough to sell on the candidate side, right? Because I mean, I don't know what the likelihood of you actually landing a gig is, but I'm sure it's 0.00 something.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to build value into the network, and I'm a big believer in curated, embedded networks. Also to like that to me establishes a level of trust with the client and the end customer. So when somebody kind of comes with the free agent, we're going to do a lot of the groundwork on the front end, helping to vet the people, checking on soft skills, versus just slinging 50 profiles to them and make them sift through the profiles themselves. So I always wanted to be more boutique in nature. Also didn't want to have a huge employee count as well. and wanted to stay lean and nimble, and again offer different service with a tighter network. The goal, to be candid with you, Matt, would be at some point to have X amount of consultants in the network, X amount of opportunities in the network, and have some golden ratio where everybody who joins is actually getting placed versus just throwing their hat in the ring.
That makes total sense. And what does the average project / individual look like? And I know this is one of the funny things too about like freelance flexible work is, like I mentioned, back to this contradiction. Ideally, I don't want, and I'm going to sound like the very, very, very like selfish CEO. Okay. Ideally, I want everyone working for just me, only me. I want them thinking about me in their sleep, just me. Right.
Yeah.
That's not the way the world is going. Right. They're going to have multiple
Those
clients.
days are over.
You name it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you slice and dice this? Do the individuals on your platform, do they work for only one client at a time? Do they have multiple clients at a time? Do you not care? Do you care? What's that look like?
No, great question. So first off, I don't care. So I'm an old sales guy myself. And so like non-competes, I think are total BS. So I don't believe in that. Most of the folks that actually we work with, work with 2 to 3 companies at any given time with a pretty equitable distribution across those companies. So maybe it's a third of my time here, a third of my time here, a third of my time there. Gotcha. Ultimately, we try to lock up at least 8 hours of time a week, but we could do it in increments of like day and a half, 2 days, 3 days. Anything more than that generally would be more of an interim opportunity, or the company should just go hire somebody full time. Yeah. But we have a conversation with them, right? We actually help the companies kind of determine. Do I need a full-time person? Do I need an interim person? Do I need just a fractional person? And then, bill rate can vary. On the low end, I'd say probably $185, $200 an hour, up to, $350, $400. Mean probably somewhere $250, and you can do the math pretty easily. But we're typically like a retainer base where you're buying a block of 8 hours a week, 6-month contract, 30-day kickout, but make it pretty easy to come in and get value.
Gotcha. Now, so you mentioned an interesting point there. So tell me about the scoping aspect, meaning that so here's the higher level question. Why do you need a freelance platform? That's going to be like the higher level question, right? And that is usually where it's so funny. I'll give you a little bit of the like human cloud sauce making that whenever because we tried working with startups and small businesses, and this is what would happen.
It's difficult.
It's really difficult. And they would say, why do we need a middle layer? Why can't we just go reach out to these individuals on our own? And the answer that we would say is you totally can, but good luck after you have 10 of them and you now have to worry about management, classification, all these various things, and then extrapolate that to you, right? So like, why do our listeners, why do these companies, why do they need a middle layer like you?
Sure. Yeah. So kind of, I'll answer that in 2 ways. First and foremost, there is a certain size. I don't want to say fractional is cost prohibitive, but we try to work with companies, revenue wise, 5-6 million plus. Yeah. Our smallest customer is 2 million currently, but they've got very, very steady cash flow, and I like the founder. I want to help the founder, right? But there's a price point where it matters, and they can be quite sensitive. And candidly, below that $6 million threshold, I found a lot of times it's often around how cheaply can we get Matt versus what's the output or the value. And it's a very different discussion, right? So I candidly try to avoid those if possible, but I will help the smaller companies. In regards to your question about the middle layer, a couple of different reasons. I mean, first and foremost, a lot of companies that size, they just don't have the infrastructure to support going out to the market. So when they're looking to source candidates or source fractional execs, oftentimes it's the referral network. And not all referral networks are created equal. And so, I like to think of us as that kind of trusted advisor that sits in the middle between the talent and the company. We try to understand from the company's perspective what they're looking for, not only from a hard skill perspective, but also a soft skill perspective. And then we go out into the market and vet those individuals and provide an executive summary and walk the client through the process to make sure they end up with the right person. So there's a little bit more magic to it than just kind of, hey, here's some profiles. We literally do try to come in, have conversations, and understand from the customer's perspective who that best profile is going to be. So
I love that quote. Not all referral networks are created equal. I think like that might be the shining quote that we use from this. And the reason I say that is I think most leaders beyond the age of 40, maybe even 35, totally take for granted that they do have a much stronger network than others. But then if you
Oh,
look
totally.
at, right, if you look at that 25 to 40-year-old leader, they just haven't had the time to build up that
Yeah.
network. But if you look at the flexible talent networks out there, they arguably have better. And so I do think, it's funny though, is like I remember early on when I first got in this space, and this was like 2012, 2016, you would hear things like, this is the democratization of opportunity, right? And you were like, oh,
Yeah.
that sounds so cute. Like, yay, like I can totally
Right.
rally around that behind it. And then the clients would be like, I don't give a shit. So then like you start to get worn down. You're just like, oh, actually, this is better, faster, cheaper talent, right? But
Yeah.
but in the end of the day, I mean, it is the democratization of opportunity, both for internal employees to drive their change, and obviously the external, either freelancers or fractional, whatever you want to call them.
Hmm.
So I just want to make sure I call that out. Now, when you say fractional, let's get in the biggest fight over fractional freelance gig.
Let's go.
And for you listeners, this is going to be a concept that, Beau, you're going to understand. I didn't understand until I moved near you. But this is going to be a little bit of an SEC football battle, meaning in the south of the U.S., people.
UGA
Yeah,
up there, buddy.
see, I knew
Go.
you would have. I'm biased in this.
Some sort of paraphernalia in
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So for you listeners, I grew up up north. We don't give a shit about our sports. We only care about like school and stuff. And so Southerners love their sports. So let's get in a big old fashioned SEC brawl, Beau, about what is the better school, and meaning fractional freelance gig. And I'll just throw a dagger and say, I don't care what people call it, like whatever the
Yeah.
clients want to call it whatever they want. If you're paying, call it whatever you want. But
Yeah.
why the word fractional or freelance or independent or consultant?
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the topic, Matt. We've talked about this before. I'm in the same camp as you, to be honest with you. I don't give a shit what it's called, what it looks like, what it is. If this person's an embedded leader or not. I mean, we do some project-based work. We will embed a leader. Ultimately, I'm trying to sell value, right? Like the customer has an issue. I don't care if we attack it on a project basis or fractional basis, interim basis. And to me, those two are different. I'm happy to get into that if you'd like. But we're just trying to solve problems. And candidly, what I found is that most of the executives that are the actual service providers themselves, they don't care either, right? They just want to provide good service at a fair rate. And most are in the space because they actually get personal satisfaction for the work that they do. So I really don't care. Our goal, like I mentioned kind of, earlier in this discussion, is, to tie up at least 8 hours of time plus. And we typically do on a retainer basis, but I'm not going to fall on my sword about person being an embedded leader or, project base or what.
What
So,
do your clients care? Do they at all care about freelance fractional gig do they care about terminology at all?
no,
No?
they
Okay.
don't.
What let's dive
They do
into
care
that
about
then.
scope of work, right? Scope
Let's
of work is really kind of what matters. What's the price? Is it clean? Is it clear? Is it retainer? Is it monthly? Am I buying an hour, bucket of hours? What's the deliverable? And do I have the right person
Yeah.
helping me?
Which
That's what they care about.
actually, let me double click on, because I think this is going to hit on like the value of a platform. Do you just say, here's an individual, go, or do you also help shape what that statement of work and scope and
Yeah.
deliverables? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of the tough part as well because it is time consuming, right? So you're talking, fractions of a work week, and then there's a lot of work behind the scenes that we also have to do as well, which can be difficult. And so, I kind of like to position us as like a catalyst of opportunity. So we'll go out, we'll find opportunity, bring it to our platform, and then we'll have discussions with folks that we believe can do the work at hand. And so we move kind of from almost like bird dog to account manager or delivery manager, and we're involved throughout the entire process, helping with the scheduling, the interview. We provide an executive summary to our clients, but then also we help with proposal generation, as well as handle all the back office. So as an example, we're actually a markup. That's how we get paid, but we're transparent. The talent knows what our markup is. The end customer knows what our markup is, and it's clear all the way around. I've noticed and learned that provides a tremendous amount of goodwill and trust. And if somebody wants to cut us out, then go do it. But you're not a good candidate
Yep.
partner with us in the future.
So this is where, so I want to double click on this because our our industry, I would say the number one problem is lack of transparency. And
Totally.
actually, when we're talking with, and most of our, when I get pulled into an enterprise, it's usually $100 million plus comparable. So they're looking
Yeah.
and they're saying, when this gets to 100 million plus, what's going to happen? And the lack of transparency is like a top three reason that they will say, nope, let's just stick with what we already have, even though
Yeah.
it's slow. We might never find the talent that we need, but at least we won't get in trouble. Right. And so let's double click on this business model and the fact that you are very just honest and transparent. And that's also,
For
Bo,
better or for
like,
worse.
but that's also what's different about this, because one of the other big things that you and I are always fighting is like a lot of times people will say, all right, then just go with the existing external talent program, meaning the contingent
Yeah.
talent program under the VMS, under the MSP. And we're always screaming, just because of seeing it happen in practice, like, no, this is a mutually exclusive option. This is different. And in most cases, it should not get looped under an existing solution, because it's
Yeah.
like, I saw this quote. It was like bringing a Toyota Camry and putting it in the Indy 500. Like, this is a new car, right? Like, flexible talent is a new car. Do not make it be a Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
But no beef on Toyota Camrys. They're not bad. But yeah. But so your pricing. Let's double click,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we do have going for us as well is we're typically talking, and we don't. It's not always hourly rates. Hourly rates are just easy to understand and digest, right? But we're typically talking in excess of like $200. So it's easier for us to have some leeway from a percent markup perspective. But literally had a conversation with a prospective client just last Friday, and we were on the phone, we were virtual, but sat down and I was like, hey, look, here the talent's rate is X. Our rate is Y, or our markup rather, and we needed to be at a certain price point because of their size. Again, they're smaller than our typical customer, so a lot of the discussion was around price point, and there's some pain associated with it. But at any rate, we ended up closing the deal because we had a conversation. We were transparent. We were able to work with them on our margin. Versus a lot of times, companies will talk to the talent. They'll mark that up 50%, 100%, and then they'll torpedo the deal for both parties.
Yep.
And there's generally a deal to be made. You just need to sit down and have a conversation. But I don't have any issues with sharing our margin. In fact, I've found it's great practice, and the folks that we have on our roster really appreciate the fact that they know definitively they're not being screwed.
Yeah, no, I firmly agree. Listen, let's talk about a little bit of the landscape in terms of who else is out there, what other solutions are out there.
Yeah.
One of the other aspects that is really hard to wrap your head around is the actual, this is so funny in our industry, we call them like hiring managers, right? Like, sorry, but like no one really wants to hire. It's not exciting. So like calling them a hiring manager just really doesn't make sense. But so one of the big problems is you individual, and this is our listeners, right? Like, you're out there, you want to get work done, you want to drive innovation, you want to drive profitability, and you don't care how, you just simply want to get that done. Now, when looking at flexible talent or full-time talent or a contingent talent program, all you care about is get the person to do the work I need done, right? But then there's this massive ecosystem where we say, I want to work with Beau. And then you'll have your legal team, your procurement team, your HR team going, ooh, Beau should be a full-time employee, or Beau needs to work under an EOR, or Beau needs to pass this compliance check, needs to go through this. So, Beau, how do you slice and dice all the various either accelerants or detractors in terms of EOR, payroll, full-time, yada, yada, yada? How do you make sense of this crazy space?
It is crazy. We actually do have a partner that we use as an EOR for certain opportunities, generally interim, where we don't want to float the payroll, to be candid. They kind of take that risk, which is great. But ultimately, I try to have a conversation with the executive team. Again, another reason why we're kind of trying to work at that strategic layer and hire, it's a different discussion. And so I like to kind of try to come in at the founder level, CEO level, CRO level, like whomever is kind of running Prime, and then get sponsored in that way. And I found that's the easiest way. to navigate the ecosystem, to be candid. Because sometimes, if you're working with talent acquisition or HR, they can look at us as a threat, whereas I don't consider us a threat at all. We're just trying to add value. But it's a much different discussion with those folks when you're sponsored in at the executive level. And additionally, too, I think as mentioned to you, I don't care if somebody's full-time fractional. I'm happy to go out into the wild and help a company find their next resident leader. It doesn't matter to me. But I need to talk to the person that's making that decision so we can kind of hone in on what's the right fit.
Yeah.
And Matt, I'll get calls sometimes where somebody's like, "Beau, I need a full-time CRO." And, after a 15-minute diagnosis, you realize that they don't need a CRO. Maybe they need a VP of sales, or maybe they need a fractional CRO, but a CRO would be the worst decision for them. So anyways, that's part of our job, is to get in, sit down with the leadership team, and kind of help understand what the drivers are, what they're trying to accomplish, and why.
That makes total sense. So we just bored the crap out of all listeners for the past 5 minutes. Let's bring the energy back up. But what are some just massive wins / examples of where flexible talent, whatever we want to call this, has really transformed a company? So more than just we placed somebody in 5 days, right? Because that is a pretty big win that you can probably do in less than 2 weeks, I assume.
Yeah.
But tell us about.
No, that's fun. That's fun, but it's not sexy, right? And we have done that, and again, that's why I'm a believer of a vetted network. Is for the quickness. But that being aside, I'd say the most interesting work that we've done in the last 12 months, so last year or so, we actually parachuted in a CFO to a company that was looking to get acquired, and so they actually helped them get a much higher multiple than they were initially anticipating. And the work was intense. I think the lady probably to this day doesn't like me because of the amount of work that she was doing. I mean, it went from, I think it was like an 8-hour a week engagement to all of a sudden she was working 40 to 60 hours when things got hot and heavy. It was insane. But provided massive value to the company, to the founding team. And that to me is where you're driving real value and real change. I mean, literally helping an organization change their lives.
I love that example. It's funny too, because I feel like when people ask me like what Human Cloud is, I always say we're just a facilitator of trust, meaning that like we facilitate reputation management usually.
I may steal that.
Right. Yeah. And steal it, man. And what we mean by that though is whatever we call this thing of work, usually like procurement, HR, especially like the contingent talent side, they become like so fixated on what is the right scope of work, what is the right time materials and all this stuff. At the end of the day, all you really care about is, can I trust this person? And is this the right person for this right job? Right. Like,
yeah,
right
I agree.
person, right time, right problem statement. And that person usually also thinks that way. So when you mentioned like, oh, they ended up having to go 40, 60 hours. I think one of the biggest myths in work is that people honestly do prioritize work-life balance or a lot of these other things over just having work that you want to work on. And so that person, although she might hate you, I doubt that. I bet you she actually would say, thank you so much for giving me this incredible type work. Yes, it sucked having to go over and above for 60 hours, but, and this is where it comes into like why you want to hire someone who's working for themselves. It was her business. And so she probably did it lovingly and loved that challenge and bitched about it like everyone would, but at the same time would not want to do anything else.
Well, and full disclosure, we also put in check marks. So every week I was literally checking in with her like, hey, are we good? I can raise a flag if need be. We can slow the project, not a big deal. And yes, she willingly was like, no, give me more. But then I think at the end burned out and yes, probably still hates me. But I agree. And I will say something, Matt. I think you touched on something interesting as well. I'm not going to say this is exclusive, but when we work with clients, we typically try to find executives that are already doing fractional work versus somebody that's, is maybe caught up in a layoff, stepped away from corporate America, and is reluctantly doing fractional work. And again, not suggesting that's a hard pass, because it's not. But to me, they could be a flight risk, right? If that full-time job comes across their desk, it's the right fit. I mean, it's human motion, right? I mean, we'd all do the same. But that's kind of a red flag. But then also too, companies do prefer to work with people that have already worked in a fractional capacity versus, hey, this is my first. Now, of course, you get the chicken and egg situation at that point. How do you get one if you've never done one? But that's, definitely a scenario that we try to stay clear of is, putting people to work that are flight risks.
Which I do want to call that out. This is one of the reasons why platforms, I would argue, will forever have a place and only have an increasingly greater place and position. Is, to your point, the best talent is already working,
Yeah.
which means that you and your referral networks are definitely not enough. And if you have someone reaching out to you saying, "Hey, I just get laid off. Can you help me out?" Maybe it works good because you helped them out. But
Yeah.
in most cases, it doesn't work as well. Who's someone who is a professional that's doing this, is going to stay doing this, and wants to have you as a book of business forever versus just a stepping stone into something else, which
But
I'm not gonna lie, Bo. I didn't even know what temp to hire meant when I was,
yeah.
facilitating over $50 million of freelance spend, and I still think it's the most like obsolete concept because it's a band aid and it's a temporary thing.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that one though here in a second.
Temp to hire,
Um,
why is it should exist? Like if someone wants to
but
do
hold
it
on,
full
hold
time,
on. We'll
let
circle
them.
back to that. But I do want to kind of jumping on a point here that you mentioned a second ago, in regards to kind of the fractional space in particular. So shit, man, we're gonna have to cut this out. I actually lost my train of thought.
So fight me on the temp to hire. Why do we need a temp to hire, Bo?
Yeah, so temp to hire is something that I'm seeing a lot more of, to be
Mm-hmm.
candid, particularly when it comes to like executive leadership.
Mm.
So as an easy example, and CROs are easy to pick on because their average lifespan is like 12, 15 months. But there's so many CROs out there that have been just screwed over, sold a bad bill of goods in regards to equity that's worthless.
Yeah.
And it seems that there's a pretty big camp of folks that are reluctant to go full time until after they've had a contractual period.
Yeah.
So they're opting now for this, call it 3 months, but generally 6 to 9 months of let's work contract, let's get to know each other. There's no equity exchange.
Yeah.
I'll figure out where all the bodies are buried because everybody's selling something.
Yeah.
Everybody's full of shit. We got the best culture over here, and I'm the best employee, and there's some gaps, right? And it takes a little while to figure those gaps out. But that's a great use case, in my opinion, and it's picking up steam for sure.
That's so. You know what? This is where it's interesting. Yes, actually, I fully agree with you, and this is where the difference between large enterprise and I would say mid, but actually that's starting to shrink because. And I do think with CROs, this makes total sense. One of the biggest wins that we've seen across enterprises is when they acquire a company, that acquired company wants to keep doing the things the way they've been doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest misses is when they force the leadership team to hire through their process instead of what they used to. And that's where usually what we've seen over and over is that acquired executive team then just sits there and rests and vests versus actually putting an ROI to the acquisition. So now, I totally agree with you. And that is where we've seen, hey, the next wave of executives hire them fractional, meaning the acquired executive team, right? So you're all right, but you got me.
But the great too, though, is that these folks, most of them are completely open and honest about it. Like, hey, I'm looking for full time. That's my preference.
Yep.
But I will not go full time until after there's been some sort of honeymoon period. Yeah. And I think it's fantastic, and it makes my job easy because it's a different conversation. And also you're leading with transparency versus oftentimes it's like I'll just tell them whatever the hell they want to hear.
Yeah.
So I can at least get the opportunity.
So interesting. So, Bo, as we close out, what would be the one message that you want to tell our listeners? And that one message could be related to the challenges. That one message could be where you see the world being in 5 years. That one message, I'm so happy we never talked about AI this whole time. But what would be the final send off that you want our listeners to know?
Yeah. So, Matt, I've been in business for over 8 years now. I was early. In fact, I think I'm one of the people that maybe foolishly helped coin the term fractional. So I'm kind of stepping away from that a little bit.
Damn you, Bo! Damn you! You're the person to blame.
On my LinkedIn moniker, I think it may still, or it used to say like the OG fractional or something like that. But at any rate, one thing I want to kind of impart on people here is that this space is not going away. 8 years ago, I was early. I was super early. In fact, I've seen the fractional space changed more in the last year and a half to 2 years than any time in the preceding 6 years. And that's being exacerbated by the baby boomers retiring, the different generation X, Y, Z taking over, pensions going away. Like it's happening. And, oftentimes I feel like people still have a gut reaction that, I need a full-time CMO, I need a full-time CRO, just as examples. Oftentimes you don't. I mean, and I'm a big believer that, if you're a sub $15 million B2B SaaS company, like you could get a fractional CFO that could do a bang up job. You do not need to be spending, 200K plus on a salary in that scenario. So it's a great way for companies to save cash, to allocate cash towards other areas that can really help drive their business. And we're just getting started.
I love it. All right, Beau, listen, thank you for hopping on. For you listeners out there, reach out to Beau about SEC football. Anything else, Beau, that you want them to bring up besides and actually, please, listeners, if you have tomatoes, throw them at Beau for the whole fractional thing.
That'd be great. Yes, thank you. No, I'm starting to distance myself a little bit.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
We refer to our folks as free agents.
Yeah, I don't see it going away, to be honest. It actually, it's definitely caught on. It's like kind of that sexier term that also means like embedded and staying versus interim, which usually is like, okay, we're here for 3 to 6 months. A PE firm brought us in to get rid of everyone. So no, I just messing with you. I do see it growing, and the data would say that as well. So, but listen, Beau, thank you for hopping on. And you listeners, look at the show notes. You'll see everything related to Beau. And first of many, my friend.
Matt, really appreciate it, man. Sincerely, thank you. All right,
thank you,
talk soon.